Welcome back to the Christian Record, and today we have another of our album archives for Holy Rollin, which is by Bryan Duncan. Was out in 1986 off of Light Records, and I have a lot of memories, not only from just this time period of Christian music, but also this album in particular, when a lot of youth outings would include the church van with all of us going to someplace together, and many times Holy Rollin was in the player, and so a lot of singing along to these songs. Especially, he does some doo-wop portions kind of thing, and so that's always very easy to sing along to because it's hard to forget the lyrics to something like that. Bryan Duncan would probably be considered one of those artists, as an example, kind of I mentioned in like the very first video that I made, that we thought we had discovered, this new great artist, only to find out as we looked back in time that he had another album previous to Holy Rollin, and then he also had a whole other career. And I don't mean, like janitor or something like that. He had he was in Sweet Comfort Band prior to his solo career. So obviously we mentioned Sweet Comfort Band a couple times, but especially even when we looked at the song Jungle Music by Servant. So Sweet Comfort Band with the Jesus music movement, he was in that, and then of course had his solo career after that. And so we thought we had discovered this great new artist, but you always find out that there's more to learn. But you could think that he kind of had several iterations in his career. So thinking in Sweet Comfort Band, we're obviously going to look at them later and his entire career probably a little bit more in depth. But at this point, just to kind of generally think that he was in a rock band in the Jesus music movement, and then he started his solo career, which was very much pop, soul, jazz, and a little pop rock in there at some points, but then kind of moved into a little bit more of adult contemporary in the latter parts of his career. And so even kind of this album for Holy Rollin had a little bit of soul and funk in there. So he's definitely done a lot of different things over the course of his career. Now, of course, Bryan Duncan, I guess I call him even just quite a character in general, an entertainer, because he always had humor, satire, especially in some of the interviews he might have given at the time. I kind of remember seeing him giving some interviews early in his solo career, about why he kind of left Sweet Comfort Band, but also just, in general about the music that he was creating. And on Holy Rollin, the liner notes kind of gives you, an example of what that looks like. And I'm just going to kind of read it. It says, he credits himself with being the best vocal performance by a white, blonde-haired male gospel singer with turquoise tennis shoes in the under 5'6" category. So that gives you kind of an idea about, kind of his personality. And, of course, the liner notes shows all these different people that are associated with this album. And, it's a ton of people that work on an album. And then he kind of has this, tongue-in-cheek line on the liner notes that says, and they call this a solo album. Because that's kind of, I even just used the word just a little bit ago, they call it a solo career as opposed to being in a band, but it still has all these people, that are working on the album. Some other notable, artists, musicians, people who worked on this album. Bob Carlyle is a big name, especially now, had, secular success as well as his Christian success. But even at this juncture, this point in his career, and of course during Holy Rollin 1986, Bob Carlyle would be, the lead singer of the band Allies, which had former members of the Sweet Comfort Band in it. And so there's that association there. And Richard Elliott is a well-known name to a lot of people, a saxophone player. And so big name saxophone player on this album. And it does have mention to Phil Kaye on this album as well, who is another pioneer of the Christian music, Jesus movement, starting with glass harp and then some other things that he did at the very beginning. So obviously Phil Kaye will be a name that'll come back up as well. So let's get into this album a little closer. As far as musically, definitely a lot of pop, gospel, some soul and funk in there, like I said. Mix of keyboard, horns, a lot of horns on this as well. And then kind of guitar that would be maybe similar to, if I was kind of compare it to another artist playing at the time, would be like Huey Lewis kind of a thing, where it's just the way it's mixed in there. It's not just like, guitar all the time. So definitely more of a pop-oriented use of guitar. And he kind of proves that he's in his own genre at this point in Christian music. Probably not just because of his presentation, but even the way he would use a little bit of rap, scat, especially on some of these songs on this album. He scats, and so and the next album especially was definitely included things like that, and so he was very recognizable to being a once in a generation kind of an artist at that time. So as far as these songs, we'll kind of go through individually, chronologically through the album, emphasizing the ones that kind of stood out to me, not only then, but still hold a little bit of resonance for me at this time. So we'll starting off with the very first track. So Only Want to Do What's Right opens the album with great sing-along portion because it very much pop with the doo-wop kind of sound and a little bit of scat to go along with it. So a great opener for people to just kind of get right in and just start singing along. And this song is basically about how God expects us to do something. Well, we don't talk about that a lot anymore, but how God expects us to do something when we're saved. We are called to be set apart. We're called to be different from the world. We are called to be holy. People don't talk about that a lot. While we are not saved by works, what we do is evidence of the one that is living within us. And so, it talks about we shall know them by their fruits. And of course, fruits is what we do. You have good fruit and bad fruit, and we can identify people by those fruits. And so this is a song about doing something, and when you do something, you want to do what's right, and finding out what God wants you to do. And so kind of a lyrical example I will give for this one. It says, "Now good and bad just seem to get so cloudy when the devil whispers in your ear, and you can be forgiven if you wanna, but I gotta make one thing clear. Do what's right." And of course, he's got his signature scream in there in this song. And even as far as the humor is concerned, if we're looking at the liner notes again, it talks about, as far as the end of the song, he makes a mention that you need to end this song by repeating the chorus 2,000 times. So that would be some additional humor there. Now, the next song on the album there would be My Little World. And this is kind of a mix of pop with guitar and keyboard. And probably the best part of this song to me is the song with the bridge going into the solo. Where he has his semi-scream there as well, and just "My Little World" repeated and repeated. So that's kind of the part that really still motivates me, gets me going today for that song. And then we have the title cut, Holy Rollin', which this is one that if you can't get up and get moving with this song, I don't know what will do it. But it's a good old knee-slapping, aisle-running gospel. And so he has his signature scream in there and gospel choir. and it says, I'm going to live my life for Jesus. I don't mind, and I tell you why, tell you why, tell you why. Oh, holy rollin'. And so, yeah, it just keeps going and going and going. And, yeah, just a song that is great for dancing and getting up and getting going. And then I look at the song Remember Me, which I'm not going to go too heavy into. Probably some people may not consider it a ballad, but it kind of falls into that category for me. And, of course, like I said, I'm not going to kind of spend too much time on it simply because it's not my favorite ballad on the album. So we move on to the song So Far So Good, which is a song with a little bit of funk in it, and it's a song about how we got on a spiritual high, especially like when we're coming back from church and we think we got it all figured out. Then the trials of the world come, and there's that battle at that point. But in the end, God helps us through and make sure that we're able to get past and face the trials in our lives. And so that's what doing So Far So Good. And then we have Your Everlasting Love, which is probably my favorite ballad on the album. Would include heavy keyboard, but keyboard syncopation. So not just regular keyboard playing, some syncopation along with the keyboard in that, and really excellent background vocals to go along with that song as well. And then the last song on the album would be Given Up, Given Up. And this is really a great way to end the album. The title itself is very tongue-in-cheek, and it's a song about keeping going and continuing on in the fight. We could even use another way of saying it as keeping on. So it says, given up, I'm not going to give up again. I'm not giving up anymore. And so I'm going to make sure that I keep going on to the end. And a couple reasons this song is great to end the album, especially the way the song ends, because it just kind of keeps going through that phrase, not giving up. And the very last line, as it's kind of fading out, shows his personality and his humor again, because it says, thank you for being here. And so it's almost like he feels like he's speaking right to his audience in this album. So if you're familiar with this album and you've heard it before and you have some experience, I'd love to hear, read your comments below and share your stories with this, time period in this album. And also, of course, remember to like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode.